Hello, I'm the Eternal Newbie. The extra L is for like. As in, when the DM doesn't like one of the players, that's going to lead to a bad time. Today I have for your listening pleasure a story of the DM who really liked one player more than the rest, and it showed. He also disliked another's character more than the rest, and that showed as well. See? We got balance. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this tale of a fateful trip that started on this rundown world aboard this tiny ship. Wait, that's not right. Sorry, let's get to it. The setting. I was running a gothic horror-style campaign in a setting that was similar in many ways to Ravenloft, with the serial numbers filed off. The main aspect that is relevant here is the eldritch dark powers that are behind everything and that the players are not intended to fight, and should endeavor not to encounter. The intention was to have the campaign be very heavy and difficult, with an oppressive atmosphere. The players weren't trying to win, they were just trying to stay alive, and as a result would probably have to accept some level of corruption and unsavory acts, or the characters would wind up dead. I had no problem if someone wanted to come in and be a strict, lawful good, but they needed to understand that it would be much harder for them. To be clear, I do fully understand that's not a campaign that's to everyone's taste, but I made it clear in Session 0 what was what, and offered alternatives if anyone didn't want to do a horror campaign. My players claimed to understand, and we moved on. The players. GM, me, longtime fan of D&D, but had never been able to play much due to it not being allowed. I had a ton of theory about how to run a game and whatnot, but essentially no experience. Hero. Hiro? I'm going to go with Hero. A player who had decided he wanted to be the big good of the setting and brought over his favorite character from another campaign he had. Jim. A relatively quiet player who was playing a member of the Vistani-like faction and was working for the big bad evil guy Mother to try and save him. There were 3 others in the group, but they for the most part will not be super relevant to this. The story. Jim tended to be a bit more quiet than the rest of the players at the table, but has really engaged with the setting and was really interested in the backstory of the world and the lore. Over the course of several months, he was reached out to and touched by the Eldritch Elder God of Magic, who was attempting to corrupt him and use him as a vessel to more directly interact with the human world. He was being fed secrets and history of the world no one else knew and was gradually getting more and more incorporated, and eventually hit at a point where he was more or less ready to meet his master. Like I said, this has been an arc that was building for several months, and I had basically planned for him to allow himself to be possessed, and a bunch of side quests which would reach the potential solution when he had gained access to that secret knowledge. The god would obviously not be a friend of the party, but due to the big bad evil guy having to scheme to become as powerful as one of the gods, he would form a truce with the party to make sure that didn't happen. I thought it would make for a fun and interesting dynamic and would give me an easy way to move things forward. In hindsight, I can see that I should have had a better plan B, but as stated, I was pretty new to this and trying to figure it out as I go. Meanwhile, Hero was repeatedly trying to throw himself into every combat and make himself the big strong hero man. It was constantly facing harsh opposition. It quickly became clear that he was trying to live out a heroic fantasy, and I thought that he understood that that was going to make his life way harder, and thought that it would be cool to keep throwing more and more challenges at him to overcome. To be clear, he was not dying. He was playing the same character, and he was succeeding in a lot of his goals. But it led to a lot of NPCs viewing him as a troublemaker and not really wanting to engage with him around in fear of drawing the attention of the big bad evil guy. This all came to a disastrous head on the night that the party entered the Elder God's temple and Jim finally achieved his possession. Hero threw a banishment spell at him, but as the god of magic, the god simply passed a spell to come back. That was the end of the session, and we went our separate ways for the week. Jim was pumped, and I thought that we would be able to move forward without a hitch. Somehow, I don't think things are going to go as smoothly as OP thinks. It never does when a DM plays favorites. You know, I would get DM's dislike of Hero's character if Hero hadn't made his intentions very clear and gotten it approved by OP. What did OP expect to happen? Hero to just go, well, shucks. I guess my friend was possessed by an evil magic god, so I guess I'm going to let it happen without a fight and accept that I'm now working with the very force that had made this plane so horrific. Of course he was going to attack. And not even making a roll? Just saying the attack didn't work? My goodness. I'm sure the god had stats. Roll a save. Counterspell. Use a legendary resistance. Do something so the player doesn't feel like you just took their agency away because it went against your plot. Besides, what would have happened if he had been banished? He comes back like a minute later? And don't even get me started on the whole evil god possessing a player thing. It has been my experience, most players use this as an excuse to play chaotic stupid. Not saying Jim would have done this, just saying I've never seen nor heard of it working out well. If you have, please let me know with a comment. You know, though, to be fair, it was the DM's first time, so leeway is given. I'm not really blaming him. Later that week, Hero approached and confronted me after school. He accused me of railroading the party into a bad ending and specifically never giving his character what he wanted, and said that I shouldn't have invalidated his decision to use the spell just by having it undone. I tried to explain that this particular story wasn't about him, it was Jim's story, and still needed time to develop. As a point of clarification, I had endgame character quests I had designed for each party member. Jim wasn't the only person that was getting a moment. It's just that this was his moment. But Hero would have none of it. He more or less stated that his character would never even lower himself to travel with an elder god and basically just sit down and refuse to leave the temple and essentially leave the campaign. I discussed this with Jim, and he basically decided that he would rather write his character out of the story than cause trouble. So his character basically left at the start of the next session, and he rolled up a new character. Unfortunately, I put all my eggs for continuing list of the story threads in that basket, which again was stupid but was the situation I was stuck with. Basically, all that was left for the party to do was assault the big bad evil guy, do the fight, and end the campaign. The whole situation left such a bad taste in my mouth that I basically just wanted to be done. So we speed ran through it, wrapped up the campaign with most plot threads unresolved and a good chunk of the party frustrated with the entire experience. And that's the story of how my first D&D campaign came to a conclusion. After 4 years with nothing resembling a bang but instead a pitiful whimper. C'est la vie. I've since learned a lot and ran several successful campaigns, but this will always be the one that haunts me. Jim seems very unconfrontational. Hey, I'm not judging, I'm the same way. But the more I hear about him, the more I feel like he would not even like to roleplay the evil god anyway. What? But why did the story have to end there? Couldn't you have moved on to a different player story? But hey, the DM was young, and it sounds like this was his first time DMing. I'm going to cut him some slack. I don't think OP is a bad person, just he handled this wrong, and honestly, which of us DMs can say we've never made a mistake? Not me, that's for sure. So OP, if you happen to see this, it's great that you learned from the experience, and I get that you were doing your best. Don't be too hard on yourself. But enough from me. What do you think? I would love to hear your thoughts in comment form. Do you agree with me? Do you think I'm an idiot? Let me know either way. And how would you have handled the situation? Or just tell me to cram it. I don't care. I love just getting comments. Likes are also appreciated. And how about turning on that little notification bell? I put out at least 2 videos a week, 3 on a good one, so stick around. If you're new around here, I would much appreciate a sub. But in any case, thank you so much for watching, and as always, play your character. Don't let your character play you.